Welcome to a Saturday morning here in Melaka, Malaysia, and it is one of my final days here in Melaka. I've stayed quite a bit longer than I intended, but yeah, I enjoy the town so much, and every day I wake up with another idea of a place I want to visit, something I want to see, something I want to understand. And when I first got here, I didn't really have any interest in going up the tower that I'm looking at, Menara Taming Sari. It didn't seem like it would offer much to my experience of Melaka. But now that I've been here and seen a lot more, I mean, I've been out to the Melaka Island, I've been all over the historical district, of course. I've learned about Formosa, the fortress, and land reclamation. And I've followed the Melaka River boardwalk, the full 10 kilometers all the way to the end and back. So now that I have all of this geography in my head, now it feels like going up the observation tower would kind of expand on my experience of Melaka. I'll get to see all of these places, hopefully in relationship to each other. You know, I can put all the pieces together. So that's where I'm heading today. And it isn't as expensive as you would think. I kind of lumped it in with expensive tourist attractions. But I think for a foreigner, on the weekend, it might be 22 or 24 ringgit, something like that. So I thought, well, let's do it on one of my last days. So I'm heading into this giant building. It's pretty crazy that this tower has such a huge building. That kind of surprised me when I first saw it. I was like, why in the heck don't they need just a little ticket booth and that's it? But apparently, I don't know, there's a Burger King in there, a chendol restaurant, but I'm not quite sure what is all inside this building. Maybe I'll find out as I go in to buy a ticket. A little bit hazy today, but that should be okay for going up in the tower to getting the view. I don't know any of the details of the tower off the top of my head, like when it was built, how tall it is, how long the trip is, you know, going up and down. It'll probably go by a lot faster than I would expect. It's not like another tower where you can just go up to the top by elevator and then just stay up there as long as you want. Oh, what the heck is this? Adventure Studio. Some sort of a, Oh, hello. Just curious what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Like roller coaster.
Yeah, that is a 5D. 5D cinema.
I see. So the chairs,
Yeah.
they move
Yeah.
and do things like that.
Yes.
I see. Oh, okay. Cool. I didn't know this was in here.
Oh.
Thanks. Yeah. So that's like, yeah, 5D cinema. And I don't know what their schedule. Oh, here it is on the door, I guess. I didn't notice this when I was going in. Oh, just saying, if you have any of these health conditions, don't do it. May not be, you know, the light isn't on, may not be open. So that's one reason they have such a big building. They have other attractions in here. Souvenir stall. The golden toilet. Okay. I think I've heard about the golden toilets in Melaka. And let's see. So here are the prices. Yeah. So here the prices are higher. So foreigners 26, Malaysians or MyCat holders 20. So that's Monday to Sunday, 9 till 6, so that's daytime. And this one is, the sunset time, Monday to Thursday, 6 till 10 p.m., 25, 31. Okay, so the night time is more expensive than the daytime. And I'm hoping I can use the power of touch and go.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Just one?
Sorry, may I know your age, sir?
63.
63.
Just turned 63.
Okay. Where are you from, sir?
Canada.
Canada. So one senior,
Mm-hmm.
22.
Do you have a touch and go?
Yes. I scan you, sir?
Oh, you scan me. Okay.
Just a moment.
22 ringgit.
Yeah.
Oh.
I give you senior price.
Yeah.
More cheaper.
That's one advantage getting older.
Yeah.
It becomes a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. This one complimentary for you.
Thank you.
Okay, your ticket.
All right,
This
thanks.
one, thank you.
Just through there. How long is the whole trip from beginning to the end?
Up and down?
Yeah.
7 minutes.
7 minutes
Yeah.
total. Okay. Thank you. So there's my ticket, and she she looked at me this time and just assumed I was elderly. So I didn't get away with a youthful look today, but I saved 4 ringgit for being an old man. And you get a complimentary bottle of water, air minuman. There you are.
1%.
Yeah, one person. Just a lonely one person. I'm ready.
1, 2, 3.
You can rent binoculars if you want to. Thank you. Yeah, it's fun that the tower, the observation platform, comes all the way down to ground level. It just sits here waiting for you like a private car or jet ready to take off.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you. So then, yeah, I guess you just walk around in a circle and stop where you feel like it. I guess it doesn't really make any difference. I suppose I could stop right here. I don't think you have to, there's no rule that you have to go all the way around to the end. So as a YouTuber, the pressure is on when you get on something like this because you only get one shot at the video. So I have to make sure the battery is fully charged. I have enough memory on the memory card. The GoPro is not overheating. That's the big one. But inside here, it's fully air conditioned. Yeah, I feel a nice cold breeze on my lower legs. It's nice and cool in here. But yeah, here's the view. I think that the tower, the observation platform, is going to be largely empty. A few people got on with me, this family over here, and there might be more people around the corner. But there's not like there's a big lineup. People pouring on. So now I just have to cross my fingers and send a wish up to the GoPro gods that nothing goes wrong for the next 7 or 8 minutes during this tour. There's an interesting story about the name of this tower, by the way. You can see it's called Tower Taming Sari. And as far as I understand it, the Taming Sari is a very famous dagger in Malaysian history. They call the local daggers here kris, K-R-I-S. And this particular kris has a long legendary history in Malaysia. It's a little bit like Excalibur, the sword of King Arthur in British legend, because this kris is associated with Hang Tuah, the legendary admiral and warrior of Malacca. And I went to look at the mausoleum of Hang Jebat and Hang Kasturi, who were contemporaries of Hang Tuah. And I guess Hang Tuah won the kris in a famous battle, and the kris has all kinds of magical properties. It makes the bearer invulnerable. There are stories that the kris can actually fly out of the sheath on its own power, and attack the enemy. It gives all kinds of powers to the man who wields it. And then I believe Hang Tuah defeated the warrior who had the kris. Despite him having all these powers, Hang Tuah was a legendary fighter, and he defeated his opponent, and then he was given that kris as a gift because of his winning that battle. Whoa, we're moving up. Anyway, so we have to look for things now. Oh, right out of the gate, of course. St. Paul Hill, right over there. So that's one thing I wanted. Oh, I had no idea there was a pool. Huh, didn't even know there was a pool in Melaka. So there's a St. Paul Hill, Dutch Square right over here, the Stat House. And here, we're looking out towards Melaka Strait. And all of this, as I've talked about, is reclaimed land. My hotel is right down here in this cluster of buildings. My hotel is just down this alleyway right here on the left. But all of this is reclaimed land. There's the Melaka Strait out there. Oh, this is cool. There's the international ferry terminal right there. I don't see an Indomal fast ferry right now. Yeah, I haven't explored this part of Melaka yet. Like on the other side of the river, I haven't gone out in that direction very much. Looking straight down at the swimming pool. Yeah, it gives you a freaky feeling moving in a circle like this, seeing it looks like the earth is rotating beneath me. There's a giant shopping mall, Makota Parade. Oh, and there's Melaka Island. That's a ghost island that I visited yesterday on my bicycle. That huge abandoned building right there. So that's a Melaka Island out there. The Melaka Gateway project that was largely abandoned. Huh. Yeah, I haven't gone out in that direction. Maybe that's just the end of the island, Melaka Island. And you can see the pace at which we're rotating. I guess we've gone all the way around one time, like one full revolution. Yeah, that's the direction that I cycled into Melaka. I came into the city from over there, following this road, and over the main bridge. As a YouTuber, I have to remember to take a picture as we go around this time. When you're shooting video, you often forget to take a photograph at the same time. Take a picture off towards Melaka Island, and there's the huge shopping mall, Makota Parade. I think I mentioned that already. And where my hotel is located, right down there. One big landmark I almost forgot about right down there, the Samudera Museum. the Flor de la Mar treasure ship. Yeah, the flower of the sea, an old replica of a Portuguese boat. There's the Melaka River. You can see one of the river cruise boats. Okay, we've started to go down. I think we went around 3 times, like 3 full rotations. Heading back down to the ground. There's the main building that I was talking about. Still don't know why it needs to be so big. Maybe the upper floors don't really have anything up there. There we are, heading back down. I can actually feel my ears popping a little bit as we go down. Being a tourist on Planet Doug, very cool. I enjoyed that a lot. Well worth the 22 ringgit. And here's the exit. Thank you. Here's a nice view. Here's the platform and the tower. Way up there. I didn't quite finish the story of the kris with Hang Jebat, but according to what I read, when Hang Tuah was unjustly accused of treason, he was imprisoned and sentenced to be executed, and they took away the kris. It was removed from him, and they gave it to Hang Jebat, his friend. So they presented him. For me, no thank you. Yeah, there's the photo. They have it on little souvenirs that you can buy. Anyway, yeah, Hang Jebat was given the dagger, the famous Taming Sari kris. And I don't know whether it was used. No, thank you. I don't know whether it was used in the duel or not, because of the famous duel between Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat. It feels like whoever had that kris would have a big advantage in the duel. And according to what I read, Hang Jebat, he was in possession of the dagger, but I don't know whether he used it in the battle. But again, Hang Tuah was the greater warrior, the more skilled fighter, and even if Hang Jebat had the Taming Sari, it didn't matter. Hang Tuah still won the duel and killed his friend out of loyalty to the Sultan. So there we are, down at ground level. Yeah, the tower looks a lot higher when you're standing right below it like this. A lot of food and drink stalls right at the base of the tower, which is nice. But one last look up at the tower. Is that experience Planet Doug approved? Absolutely. I enjoyed that very much. When I asked the woman, how long the trip up and down takes, and she said 7 minutes. I can see someone thinking, oh, that's not very long. Is it worth the price? But to be honest, it's more than long enough. I mean, how long do you need to be up there to go around and around? 3 full revolutions at that pace, I think, is more than enough time to absorb the atmosphere and see everything you want to see from up there. Though towards the end, I was like scrambling in my mind. It's like, oh, have I actually looked for all of my things that I wanted to see? And it turns out I totally forgot about one thing I wanted to look for, and that was the river itself, like the river boardwalk going 10 kilometers out into the countryside. I didn't remember to specifically look for that, but I don't think I would have been able to see it anyway, because of the angle and then buildings and trees at the side of the river. I don't know that you would actually see the river. but it didn't jump out at me. Like I didn't see it and go, oh, look, there goes the Melaka River. Maybe if I'd made a point of looking, I would have seen something. But anyway, that's one thing I completely forgot to look for. Well, I am such a dummy. I had no idea that this park was like a shortcut between my neighborhood and the Dutch Square. Look at that. It heads straight over there. All this time, I thought I had to follow the road. So my hotel is back here. Then I would walk in this direction and then follow the road around. But there's actually a shortcut right through this park. Very nice. I knew about that road over there, but I didn't realize I could go through the park. This is cool. And okay, that's why I didn't know about the swimming pool, because it is part of this park. And I didn't really explore this park in the time that I've been here. So I guess, yeah, the swimming pool is right over there. And here's something, St. Francis Xavier commemorative stone. This stone is known as the City Cross. It was originally located in the sea, but has since been moved inland when reclamation work was done by the British, 37 to 39. During the Portuguese reign in Malacca, the Bocharo records depicted that this stone had once been adorned by a steel crucifix. Malacca Historical Society rebuilt this commemorative stone in '54 using metal sheet. This site is now one of the attractions for visitors visiting Malacca. The stone is believed to be the location where St. Francis Xavier first set foot in Malacca during his visit in 1512. It is also believed that the stone will not sink. This is due to the curse that St. Francis Xavier put on it. Well, I didn't know any of that. And where is the stone, or the recreation of the stone that they're talking about? I don't see anything. Is it this? There's no stone here. Oh, but this must be it. Maybe it's underwater? Because there is a crucifix on top, and that seems to be what they were talking about. Yeah, that must be it. The commemorative stone. So maybe it's actually underwater and you can't see it. So maybe this is, yeah, this must be it here. It has a historical plaque on it. You can't read the plaque anymore though. There you go. Taking the shortcut, you see new things. There's the transportation courtyard that I checked out before. Another place I wanted to visit on my last couple of days in Malacca, and I thought it would be appropriate to combine it with the modern tower, is the Malaka Sultanate Palace Museum. I've tried to go to this museum a couple of times already, but I keep timing it wrong, and it's always closed when I get there, or I just run out of energy before it comes up on the daily schedule. But today is the day, morning time, full of energy, and I think I'm in the right frame of mind to really appreciate it. So this palace is, as far as I understand it, an exact duplicate, because the original palace was destroyed in all the fighting with the Portuguese and the Dutch thing. All, the buildings here got destroyed, but this museum now is an exact replica of the original at the same scale. And I believe the original Sultanate Palace, we're talking about something that goes back to the 1400s. Sultan Mansur Shah, I think, was the one who commissioned it and lived in this palace at that time. So yeah, from the 1500s, before the Portuguese arrived. And the original palace, made entirely out of wood and didn't use a single nail in its construction. The whole thing was done with joinery and wooden pegs, things like that. And I think it was located on the other side of St. Paul Hill, closer to the river. And then when they rebuilt it to make it a memorial and museum, they put it here on this side of St. Paul Hill. You can see it behind me there. Just to place it, of course, it's right beside Afamosa, and there's St. Paul Church up there, Bukit Melaka, and then just down the street from those is the Sultanate Palace Museum. I think it's one of these places where you're expected to remove your shoes to go in, all wood on the inside. I'm surprised more of the shutters aren't open. It looks a little bit gloomy and dark from the outside. Yeah, I think for a photographer, you probably want to boost your ISO. You need a low light camera, perhaps, to truly appreciate the inside. But there it is in the name in Malay, Istana Kesultanan Melaka. So the Melaka Sultanate Palace Museum. And I don't really know what's inside, what you're going to see, but I think it's essentially they rebuilt it as it was historically. So I don't know if it's full of exhibits where, you know, full of information to read and photographs, or it's just the original furniture all on the inside, and you get to see what the palace looked like when it was built. It looks like the ticket counter is way down here at the end. Aha. And I see a Do It Now QR code. It's very exciting. Pricing. Dewasa means adult. So it's 10 ringgit if you have a MyCAD, you're Malaysian, 20 ringgit for foreigners. Kanak, children, 5 and 10. And then the hours there. Tuesday to Sunday, 9 till 5. Fridays have different hours. Monday closed.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, just one, please.
How old are you?
63.
Okay, so for senior citizen, alright?
Yep.
10 ringgit. Can you pay by card?
I just have my passport.
Passport way?
Like, I don't have a special card.
You have visa?
Visa? I don't know what that is. I just have it. Has the date on my passport.
Kakak, ni apa benda? 10 ringgit.
You give me 10 ringgit, sir.
10 ringgit. Okay.
You pay by what?
I'll just pay cash.
Cash. But you have a card?
I have.
Or touch and go? You have
I have touch and go.
Okay. Scan
Okay.
here. Okay, wait, I give you a receipt.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
I got it.
Yes.
All sorted from the ticket counter. I think I would need a detective to go over that conversation line by line, because I think I was just completely out of sync with what they were saying. They started, of course, they asked me whether I was, how old I was. And apparently you get a 50% discount as a senior citizen. So, hey, being older has its benefits here. 20 ringgit versus 10, that's a substantial savings. But then she did say, well, 10 ringgit, but then she said card. And I assumed she was asking for some sort of a senior citizen's ID card. Like, to qualify as a senior citizen, I need the card. So I was offering her my passport, which has my date of birth on it, to show that I am 63 years old. But I think maybe, now that I'm thinking back, she was asking me for payment. Okay, it is 10 ringgit. We accept you're a senior citizen. Look how old you are, man. Come on. You know, you're no young, you're no spring chicken. We can tell how old you are. But to pay, it's no cash. It's card only. So maybe she wasn't asking for senior citizen card. She was asking, oh, payment. Can you pay by card? So anyway, we got really confused. And by that point, the touch and go QR code had disappeared. It was like on a window that they could open and close, and it was open. And I don't see the do it now anymore. So then I says, I'll just pay you with cash. And then they're like, no cash. And so I was totally confused. But eventually she slid the door back, revealing the do it now code, and then I was able to pay 10 ringgit with the power of touch and go. So we got there eventually, but I think there was a great deal of confusion. All right, so we're in front of the building, and as I said, it seems a little bit dim and dark because all the shutters are closed, and the dark wood gives it a little bit of a gloomy feeling as well, just the darkness of it. And this is where you leave your shoes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. You can see the dark brown of the stairs right away here. And they're thinking ahead to us senior citizen types. They have a whole series of massage chairs. Yeah. You can rejuvenate yourself for the tour or after the tour. Looks like 3 floors. Here's the main entrance. First floor, second, and then a third floor. More, it looks like it's a towel. Treasury room, way up at the top. Sultan's bedchamber, ceremonial costumes, traditional costumes, audience hall, ceramic and copper collection, clash of 2 warriors. I wonder if that's the story of Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat. Malay traditional weapons, and then a whole bunch of dioramas. So it is an actual museum, like with museum displays. This is the audience hall for the king. And according to the sign here, the king sits at the head there on that raised yellow, like a throne or seat. And then all the various ministers and authorities would sit around him based on their status. And this is where they would meet with foreign dignitaries as well. And luckily, they do have a modern element of air conditioning, so it's nice and cool inside here. And they do have a display here about when it was built. It was in 1984. They constructed this palace. And this is a gorgeous replica of what they're calling the Mendam Barahi ship. I didn't know that the Melaka Sultanate had a navy. I had no idea that they had ships like this, but apparently they did, complete with cannon. And this was gifted to Admiral Hang Tuah. Oh, look at all the oars along the bottom there. So it's driven by a galley of oarsmen, and the sails. That's something new. I was right. This whole display, it's labeled on the map as like 2 warriors fighting, and it illustrates the whole history of Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat. So the whole story is told here, and there's all kinds of details that I wasn't aware of. So Hang Tuah, of course, was an admiral for the Sultan, and he was extremely popular, extremely gifted, and got a lot of, rewards from the Sultan, and apparently that made some of the other leaders jealous, so they accused Hang Tuah falsely of being a traitor. And Hang Tuah was a very loyal man and very honorable. So he did not fight against it, like against the punishment. The Sultan didn't investigate the charges against him, just assumed that he was a traitor, and then Hang Tuah just accepted his fate, again, because he was so loyal to the Sultan. However, the man who was supposed to carry out the execution had his doubts and did not carry out the order. So this man was supposed to execute Hang Tuah, but instead of doing that, he whisked him away and hid him in a forest. And that's what's being illustrated here. However, Hang Tuah's good friend, Hang Jebat, thought that Hang Tuah had been executed, and he was also given the famous sari by the Sultan. This is the Taming Sari, from the tower that I was talking about, this famous dagger, which was supposed to have powers. And Hang Jebat, to avenge his friend, actually revolted against the Sultan. But at that point, the Sultan learned that Hang Tuah was actually still alive, and he was happy to hear that Hang Tuah had not been executed. So he called Hang Tuah back to put down this rebellion. So now we had a situation where two best friends, Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat, were now facing off against each other. Everything Hang Jebat did was out of loyalty to his friend, but Hang Tuah, being an honorable man, he had no choice but to follow the Sultan's orders and fight against Hang Jebat. And I was very puzzled by this display for a little while. So this illustrates the classic, the legendary duel, the fight between Hang Jebat and Hang Tuah. And I couldn't figure out why they were posed this way. It just seemed like an odd pose for a legendary battle, right? So I asked another man here, a Malaysian man, if he could explain it to me. And he pointed out all the daggers, and they're raised up off the ground, and a bunch of soldiers were sticking their daggers, their spears, up through the floor during the battle. So these two men that were fighting, they had to fight each other while avoiding all of these sharp blades coming up from the floor, trying to stab them from down below. So that's why you have such a dynamic setup here. And I guess the battle ended when Hang Tuah retrieved his dagger, the famous Taming Sari. He took that back from Hang Jebat, and then he used that powerful kris to kill his friend. And now this is the death scene, the two friends, where Hang Tuah was forced, because of his honor and loyalty to the Sultan, to kill his best friend, Hang Jebat. So yeah, my time here in Melaka has worked out really well from that point of view, because before I came here, like a couple of days ago, I visited the mausoleum of Hang Jebat. So I learned the whole story of this legendary part of Malaysian history. And then going to the tower itself, and the tower was named after this legendary kris. So in fact, I had all of the information already in my brain that I could understand everything, not everything, but I could understand most of the significance of what I'm seeing in this display. It's becoming more clear to me why so many of the shutters are closed. It's mainly because of the heat, I think, and this area is still somewhat air conditioned and has fans. But in order to keep the temperatures down, I think they have to close most of the shutters, otherwise it would be so hot in here. The whole area behind me was a really interesting display of all of the palaces around Malaysia for all the different sultans around the country over the centuries. And I'm not going to go over all of them with my GoPro, of course, which is a really beautiful selection. And then over here is a display about the weaponry of Malaysia, the ancient weapons they used here. The kris that we've been talking about, the whole history of them, and spears. So this is what they were stabbing upwards when Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat were fighting. Those long spears like this, stabbing from below. And cannon as well. But what's amazing is how big this is. Beautiful displays. I really appreciate this place. I've read through most of all this information here already. But I just assumed this was the end here, but then you turn the corner and you go all the way around the entire palace. The whole building has display after display after display all along the outside. There's a palace kitty cat, and there's a St. Paul Hill, so we're at the back side of the palace now. Yeah, just a stunning building. It's gorgeous. One thing I've noticed as I've gotten older, my feet really hurt when I'm walking barefoot. I think I talked about this in the past. As a kid in Canada, into my teen years, I think, I just went barefoot all the time, running on rocks and wood and climbing around, hot sand. My feet were fine. But now when I remove my shoes, and all I've done is walk around this museum, and my feet are in agony. I just can't walk on bare feet anymore. It's really strange. I'm not sure why they hurt so much. And there's something wrong with my circulation or something. Here's one of the many palaces, the models that are on display. This is from Negeri Sembilan, the Sultan's Palace. Oh, we've come all the way around, back to the beginning, gone all the way around. I'm fascinated by this story. There's actually a painting exactly like this downtown by Zeus Coffee, and I took video of this painting and took a picture of it, and I thought it was quite amusing because the story that I read there was something about this tiny deer, that mouse deer, and somehow it managed to kick a big, powerful hunting dog into the river. And I thought that was so weird. It was like, I didn't know the story behind it, but they tell the story here that the founder of Melaka, Paramaswara, fled from what is now Sumatra and landed near Muar. And then after traveling along the coast in this direction, he stopped to rest beside a river, I guess. That's him there, the founder of Melaka. And while he was here, he saw this little mouse deer, and then out of nowhere, this tiny creature kicked one of his hunting dogs right into the river. And it was just so strange. He took it as an omen that he should make his home here, and then he stopped. So that was basically the origin story of Melaka. So this mouse deer is kind of the symbol of Melaka now, which is very interesting. I'm up on the second floor now. Much hotter up here because heat rises, so it's quite a bit warmer up here. But still fans and air conditioning, so it's okay. And this whole end is dedicated to telling another famous story from Malaysia's history. I really like that approach in this museum. It's very, very well done, that they base the exhibits on storytelling rather than just a dry, okay, here's a pot, here's a piece of jewelry, stuff like that. Here's a sword. They actually have displays that reenact with, paintings and dioramas of the history of Malaysia. So, yeah, it's very engaging, very, very interesting. Yeah, I like this place a lot. The final section is up here, sort of the third floor tower. You can see it up there, but it's closed off to the public right now. I don't know if it's ever open. But this would be the stairwell to go up there, but it's closed as far as I can tell. Yeah, the fans aren't running up there. Leaving from the Sultanate Palace Museum, you can see it all around me. Really nice place. Planet Doug approved, especially when you get the 50% senior citizen discount with the power of touch and go. Very exciting. But yeah, I really like this place. Astonishing building, beautiful building. The building alone is worth coming to see it. But I love how they did the displays. As I said, they actually tell stories rather than just putting up a bunch of stuff to look at. Though one thing, I found the story of Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat compelling. Like when I was looking at that exhibit, I really appreciated that. But that could be because I already know most of the story. I've been reading about it in recent days. And I think that exhibit, the way they've laid it out, it's designed for people who already know the story. It's like, you know the story, and here's the story illustrated. So it seems like whoever put together the displays, they were thinking of Malaysians. Like, okay, you grew up in Malaysia, you know these stories, and here is diorama and paintings retelling that story that you're familiar with. And if you're a foreigner, a Western visitor like me, you wouldn't really get it. You're like, oh, like the display doesn't start from the point of view of a foreigner who knows nothing. Like it doesn't have a display that tells you exactly who Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat are and why they're so significant in Malaysian history. Like it doesn't start at the very, very beginning of the story and lay out their significance for you. They just assume you already know their significance and just have it out there, on display. But yeah, so I could see some visitors going up to that display that I just saw and just walking around it, glancing and going, oh yeah, okay, well, it's cool. But they may not know the real significance if they don't already know the story. And the only other small critique I might have is a common one for me. There's actually the man who told me the significance of the spears going up through the floor. It actually made me think of like the choreography of like a Marvel's superhero fight where Spider-Man or somebody is fighting the bad guy in this room and they're focused on fighting each other, but then they also have blades, piercing up from the walls and from the floor beneath them, and that would create a very unusual fight choreography, and that's what they had on display there, and I thought that was quite interesting. But there happened to be the man who told me that story. He was quite tall. He was as tall as I am. So I went up to him because he was looking at a display, but then the placard giving the history was down at our feet. So he actually bent over for a second and then he just gave up. He's like, no, I can't be bothered. So that's how I started a conversation with him. And I says, yeah, museums are always hard for tall people because the information is always at ground level. And we spend the entire time in the museum, like bent way over, trying to read everything down on the ground. And then we got to get back up again, go to the next one, bend way over, read it. I always want the signs to be kind of at eye level. But that's just a Planet Doug pet peeve about museums in general. So I really notice it if a museum happens to have the information a bit higher, like at waist or eye level, and then you can just read it, or bigger letters so you don't have to lean way in and squint to try and read everything. But yeah, that worked out very, very well. And I think maybe I can throw this in at the end. I'd read about this and I knew it was here, the Proclamation of Independence Memorial, because the announcement of Malaya's impending independence was made by Tunku Abdul Rahman, Malaysia's first prime minister, at Padang Palawan, just across the road. I remember that whole story from when I went to some museums in KL, and around Independence Day, that the announcement that the day had been set was made here in Melaka. So I guess they built this memorial to that event. I thought maybe it would just be a memorial, like a statue, like something you'd look at. I didn't realize it was an entire building that you could enter. So since I'm here, I might as well enter. Go take a look inside. Seems to be open, and I'll just go in with my GoPro, and hopefully nobody yells at me and says I can't go in. Let's see how it goes. So here we go. So this memorial, this building pre-existed the memorial. It was the Melaka Club, built in 1911, and then it was converted into this memorial to the independence of Malaysia. So I don't think I'll spend a huge amount of time in there, because I spend a lot of time in KL reading about and learning about the path towards Malaysian independence, and it looks like the displays inside tell that story again. So I am going to go inside and check it out, but visually this might be more interesting. I saw these out of the corner of my eye, but I guess the proclamation of independence, like the announcement that the date had been set, was made over here in this park area, which I wasn't aware of that part of history. I'm not sure what the significance of these are, why they're here. Oh, look, Hang Jebat, the man we were just talking about in the Palace Museum. Certainly got an aggressive styling. And there's Hang Tuah, a pair of military vehicles, the great warriors of Malaysia, Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat, side by side, and doomed by circumstances and loyalty and honor to fight each other. Yeah, it's a great part of Malaysian history, that story. And as I suspected, this car was used by the Tunku on his travels around Malaysia. Chevrolet. Amazing condition, really good condition. Colorful flags, very festive. And so I'm just going to go in for a few minutes, and hopefully I can keep my sandals on, as my feet really hurt. I've already gone through most or all of the first floor. The highlight for me are the photographs. Like, I haven't really stopped to read a lot of the text, because there is a lot of text. There are entire books on the wall here, but there are a lot of photographs that I've never seen before of historic periods, boats on the water, the Japanese occupation, and then, of course, government photos like this, various meetings. But for me, there's, and look at that, actual clippings from newspapers at the time, seeing the headlines. Established 1845, the Straits Times. And I think we're allowed to go up. But yeah, for me, I don't think there's any need to really do a deep dive. I'm more interested in the building and just the general impressions of the place. Yeah, very nice. This is the second floor. So I guess this was the Melaka Club originally. So this looks like this would have been very nice. Probably an outdoor balcony, tables and chairs, cold drinks out here for the Melaka Club members. And just more of the museum part over here. Yeah, as you see, look at all these photographs. So you get to see a lot of images that you may not have seen before. So this is all about the emergency. Yeah, very well done as well, just giving some atmosphere, because so much of the fighting of the emergency was centered around the countryside and the jungles, fighting with the communists, and they developed that kind of atmosphere up here, you know, with the trees and things like that. And it looks like the second floor after the display about the emergency. That was actually quite interesting. There was a lot of information there about how entire villages were resettled in their fight against the communists. You know, they took people in farming villages that may have been supporting the communists with supplies and food and things like that, and basically moved them to another area, like new villages. And that kind of, the idea was to remove the base support that the communist forces were depending on. There's a lot of photos and stories about that over there. It's quite interesting. But this floor is all about the actual independence, the modern independence movement. And it's a story that I've looked into quite a bit. But this is why this museum exists in the first place. Because as I talked about, the announcement of the date of independence was made here in Melaka. And this is the procession, I think. Yeah, so it looks like that's a St. Paul Hill in the background. Oh yeah, there's Formosa right there. And they're driving from the airport, I think, to the park. And then they're making the announcement. That's a very cool diorama, I like that. I had no idea this museum even existed. Like I said, I just thought it was like a statue or a memorial. And I had no idea the museum would be so extensive. There's a lot of information here. And as I said, a lot of photographs and dioramas, things like that. So of course, this is the famous Merdeka, Merdeka, Merdeka moment. Yeah, I've never seen it on display like that. And then I think a lot of these photographs are new to me. And this is interesting. According to the sign, this is the actual recording machine, tape player basically, recording device that was used to record the speech by the Tunku, the Proclamation of Independence speech. Was recorded on this device right here. Malaya Independence Celebrations, 1957. Yeah, I don't think I've seen any of these photos before, not even online, like this one here. I think that's brand new to me. I've never seen that one before. Or this one here. Very cool. Something else quite new, an entire display about political cartoons that would have been in the media at the time. The Declaration of Independence and forming the new country, Malaya, and then of course the formation of Malaysia itself. It's a long, complicated road Malaysia followed until it got full independence in the form that it is today. And they have this selfie area right here. You can climb up onto this car. I think there's a bench behind here. So you can, stand up there and raise your fist in the same gesture. Yeah, I'm more and more impressed with this place. Even on the stairwell heading down to the exit, they have this interesting display, all historic photographs. These are like botanical gardens of the Straits settlements in the early 1900s, or in the 1900s anyway. But there's also some photographs of street scenes that you can see here. Really gives you a sense of the history of Malaysia. That's Penang, Singapore, So some landmarks of the Straits settlements. I really like this one. These are the people population of the Straits settlements in the 1900s. And transportation. Everything from elephants to boats to rickshaws, horse-drawn carts, all kinds of things. Now we're back at the entrance and the exit. Planet Doug review, big thumbs up. Very interesting museum. Far more interesting than I was expecting. To be honest, it's the kind of place where, had I known it was so extensive in terms of the information and the displays, I would have set it aside like for an entire morning. This would have been my main goal, just to come here. This is where I would have started the day, because I would need a lot more time and energy to go through everything. But yeah, very interesting place. The building itself, it's got a lot of history. Displays are imaginative, full of new perspectives on everything to do with Malaya, Malaysia, Straits settlements, the Proclamation of Independence Memorial. So maybe it's just a misnomer, like they gave it the wrong name, calling it a memorial, because I didn't know it was a museum until I actually went inside. Interesting. And over there is the Sultanate Palace and Bukit Melaka. A lot of people here today, Saturday. A lot of visitors, very bustling. Yeah, my main interest for the day was to go up the tower and to visit the Sultanate Palace. So I used up all of my energy to visit those two places, and then this I tacked on at the end, but I didn't have my batteries were not fully charged to go through there, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. So yeah, that is the end of my walk for today. Yeah, I enjoyed that very much. I really picked a beautiful day to do this. Yeah, there's Bukit Melaka up there, Famosa, I think the Santiago Gate. And I got some discounts for being 63 years old. I saved 4 ringgit to go up the tower, the senior citizen discount. And then I saved 10 ringgit to go into the Sultanate Palace, all with the power of touch and go, which leads me, of course, to the end of the video, and shout out to everyone who has supported me recently with contributions via touch and go. Really funds the Planet Doug Small Adventures so that I can make these videos for you. I appreciate the support through touch and go very much. And of course, shout out to all of my Planet Doug Patreon members, the free members, and everyone who has joined one of the tiers, the City Planet, Forest Planet, and the Ocean Planet members. I really appreciate all you guys. And throughout this morning's walk, I've had the Strava app running to record where I go. So I will put a 3D flyover map at the end of the video, or at the end of this conclusion, so that you can follow along on the map, see everywhere that I went. And if you made it all the way to this point, and you even know that there is a 3D flyover map coming up, well, that makes you a member of the Planet Doug Crunch Club. You made it all the way to the end of the video. Thank you very much. Put CC in the comments to let me know. I'm curious, all of my Crunch Club members, if you came to Melaka, would you go for a ride in one of the trishaws? Like whether during the daytime or nighttime? If you planned a trip to Melaka, would you be looking forward to a ride in one of these brightly colored, music-playing trishaws? Yeah, I'm curious how many people would actually do that. I don't even know how much it costs. I've never spoken to one of the drivers, so I don't know what they charge, how they charge, cash only, or can you do it with the power of touch and go? I have no idea. Yeah, I haven't done it myself. Yeah, let me know if you would. So that's it, shutting down. and see you next time.